middle school and the high school. The good news for that is when you arrive as 9th graders, you're going to have to adapt to a new schedule, as will everyone else in the high school. And one of the neat things for me about our new schedule is with chapel being pushed to Thursday, that opens up a block of time on Friday that I'm responsible in my position to fill. And sometimes we're going to have rallies during that time. Sometimes we're going to have guest speakers, but more times than not, we actually have what's called clubs and activities. I think in the middle school, you guys have some time every once in a while, maybe once a month, for clubs and activities. Typically, we do that every week. The purpose of that time is to give you the opportunity to explore some things you might not normally explore in your classes. I'll give you an example. How many people watch crime dramas like SVU or Criminal Minds or those other types of shows, right? They talk about forensics, following the evidence, studying a crime scene to determine what went down and who did it. Well, a few years ago, one of our science teachers said, we're going to take the enthusiasm that everyone has for these popular television shows and we're going to make a club. And there were various crime scenes that they had to solve by following the evidence. That has now actually become a science class. One of the science electives that you can take is called forensics, I believe, when you get into your sophomore and junior year. Other things that we do in our club and activity time, similar to you guys, we have an academic or quiz bowl, but we also explore rocketry. Years ago, we used to make model rockets and shoot those off on lake fields. Now there's a group that actually does that. Others might have a spirit club, which helps plan and organize pep rallies. We have groups that are involved with robotics. We even have a group of young students who are learning how to be veterinarians under the tutelage of Dr. Golston, who is a former veterinarian. And they actually perform surgeries on animals. In fact, this Saturday, they're traveling up to his farm to perform 3 surgeries, determine how best to set a horse's broken leg, and then perform other types of needed procedures on his alpacas. You guys know what an alpaca is? It's like a llama. So they're working with live animals. Sometimes you may just need an extra study hall, and there are teachers who open up their rooms for a study hall. What we encourage you to do, and why I'm telling you this, is because there are lots of opportunities when you come to the high school. The high school is an opportunity for you to hit the reset button on how your Wesleyan experience has been. Try things that are new, try things that are fresh, try things that are interesting, and become a more mature and more complete person. One of the other aspects of my job is that I'm the advisor of student government. I believe in middle school you call it student council. So it's a very different organization that has the same purposes. Same purpose is to unify the school, your particular grade, as well as your particular division of the school. And so in student government, we organize Homecoming Spirit Week and Homecoming Dance. We also put on the high school talent show. We have other fun activities, whether they be dances or socials, or just merely events during the year. The selection process for representatives for student government will take place after you return from your freshman retreat. The group that is in here will not be the 9th grade group. There's about 30 new students who you haven't met yet who are going through the admission process. We take about 25 to 30 new students and add them to the 9th grade class each year. And so we want to give those students the opportunity to be part of student government. So you guys will come back to Wesleyan at the end of the summer. You'll go off on your freshman retreat. You'll get to know each other a little bit better. You'll have a better sense of what you want your high school experience to be and whether you want to be part of shaping that experience. And then I'll ask for those people who want to run for office. You will give a speech in front of your class, not the school, but your class, and your class will cast votes on who their 3 class representatives will be. Student government is comprised of 3 class representatives from each class, as well as 3 vice presidents that come from the junior class, a president and a chaplain that comes from the senior class. So for you guys going into next year, 3 of you, I hope, will want to at least represent your class on student government. So I encourage you guys to come through, take a look at the list that we have for clubs and activities. This list is always changing. If there's something that you have particular interest in that is not on this list, we'll find a faculty sponsor, and we'll have that club organized for you. And a second thing, hope that you'll want to be part of student government. Okay, any quick questions on our clubs or activities? You should have a copy of next year's high school schedule that was sent to you by Mr. Cleveland. At least it was sent to your parents, and you can access that through the school's website. No questions? All right, very good. Mr. Custer and Ms. Zavitz are also here from the Honor Council, and they brought this year's president of the Honor Council, Benji Johnson.
All right, we're going to speak for a moment. Before I do, again, this is Mrs. Zavitz, who teaches in our English department. She and I are two of the 4 faculty sponsors of the High School Honor Council. And as Mr. Kramer mentioned, Benji Johnson is a senior, and he is the president of this year's Honor Council. The reason we're going to talk to you today, some of you may be looking for a leadership opportunity upon entering high school next year. The Honor Council is totally different in the high school than it is in the middle school. If a teacher suspects that you've cheated on an assignment, if you've been guilty of plagiarizing an assignment or something, my understanding is the dean handles incidents like that. In the high school, because we treat you like you're older and more independent as over, you have to take responsibility for your actions. And so we have an honor council made up of 14 high school students. There are 4 seniors, 4 juniors, 3 sophomores, 3 freshmen. When a student is accused of violating the honor code, either lying, cheating, or stealing, when that happens, one of the faculty sponsors interviews the accused student, and we determine whether there's enough evidence to move forward with a hearing. If there is, that student goes before this 14-member high school honor council made up of high school students, and they determine the innocence or the guilt. They also then make a recommendation to the dean of students as to what the consequences of that action should be. So that, in essence, is how the high school honor council runs. And again, totally different. And so in a few weeks, you guys are going to have an election amongst your class as to who you want your representatives to be next year as 9th grade representatives to the honor council. You'll have 3. So again, any one of you are free to run for that office. There is an application process. There's an interview that you will have, and then there's a vote among your classmates, and then we put the results all together and so on and so forth, and then it's clear who the candidates are that receive the highest amount of votes. Okay? So I'm gonna turn it over to either, if Mrs. Zavitz has anything she wants to add, she's free. Benji is here more to just explain a little bit about when hearings are held and how it all works, and then I'll go over one last time with you if you feel like that you want to take advantage of a great leadership opportunity. I'll tell you how you go about the election. So, anything you would like to communicate at this point? I don't think so. Okay, Benji.
So if you're on the honor council next year, if there's a hearing, you'll get an email the day of the hearing from Ms. Zavitz next year, and then you'll have the hearing after school, and hearings take precedent over every other commitment you have except for like a game or like a performance of some sort. So you essentially just tell your coach, I'm going to be late to practice, or I won't be at practice because I have a hearing. Also, you want to keep it confidential. You're not allowed to tell any other student. You can tell your coach I have a hearing, but nothing more than that. And then when you're done with it, you can't talk about it at all. So it's essentially the process of a hearing. Any questions?
No one has a question. Usually, when the honor council president gets hit with a lot of questions. All right.
Yeah. Like, could you get a hearing for talking about a hearing?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, you could.
Honestly, the way our bylaws are spelled out, you are removed from the honor council if you violate the confidentiality. So honestly, and some people, you love to talk, and I get that. All right? If you cannot keep a secret, then this is not the role for you. We do not want the student body looking down on someone who has made a mistake. And so we are not out to get anybody. Again, we want a community where the honor code is upheld. We think that's the best kind of community to have, where people can be honest, teachers and students can be honest with one another and so forth. But we recognize that violations occur. But we are not out to embarrass the student who committed an honor infraction. None of the adults talk about it with anyone, neither should any of the students, and we even tell the person who has been accused of an honor violation, we're not going to ruin your reputation, neither should you. So again, if you have trouble keeping things in confidence, this would not be a position for you. Other questions for Benji?
If you're in it 1 year, do you have to like get reelected?
Yes, so every year, unless on your junior year, you can run for president, and if you're elected, and that's elected among the council, so if you're elected president, then you don't have to run your senior year. But other than that, every other year you have to get reelected. Yes.
What's the difference from being a regular member to the president?
If you're the president, there's a assembly at the beginning of the year that you give a speech and you kind of lead, and then also during the year, during hearing, you'll conduct the hearing essentially, and you'll be the lead member on that, but all of the members participate, and the only difference is really you lead the hearing, so.
Do y'all have like a lot of hearings over the year?
Depends on the year, so, we could have none for a couple months, and then we could have one every day of the week, it depends.
Honestly, what we have seen over the years, and it'll come as no surprise to you probably, near the beginning of the first semester, usually at the midpoint, the end, and then the same thing to take shortcuts. And so we do sometimes see that. Honestly, for ninth graders, you'll hear this at some point next year when you get to high school, but one thing we see with ninth graders early in the semester are a lot of kids who think nothing of going, let's just say Elizabeth goes to her friend here and says, hey, guess what, I didn't get my homework done last night, can I copy your homework? That's an honor infraction, right? You're passing that work off as if it's your own, and it's not, it's hers. So in a case like that, where again, at the beginning of the year, sometimes ninth graders, we see a lot of that at the beginning of the year, sometimes. But Benji's right, each year honestly is different.
So you do have to be able to be a bit flexible in that you will receive an email the day of, but there is no set schedule. We don't meet on a regular basis just for meetings. Hearings are almost the only time we can meet.
Is it like the people on our council like vote on if they're like guilty or not, or is it?
They do.
Yes.
Benji can tell you how you want to describe basically a typical hearing.
Sure, for a typical hearing, we'll bring the person in, they'll have given a written statement beforehand, and then they'll also give their verbal statement, and we'll ask, if you do come before the honor council, my advice would just be tell the truth completely. It always goes a lot easier, and if you tell the truth, we'll look highly upon that. And then we'll ask any clarifying questions, and then ultimately, when we get to the bottom of it, we will vote on it.
Did I answer your question?
Also, can you have more than one hearing a day, or is it like one a day?
You can have more than one hearing a day. It's unlikely. It's not typical, but you can.
The example that I just made up was like, let's just suppose it's these two girls. We would bring them both in. They would be separate. They wouldn't come together because we would not want one, hearing what the other said and all that. But that would be considered, two hearings, but it's the same incident.
Yes.
How do you decide when the hearing is? Always
It's always at 3 o'clock after school. And again, this year it's been made that I will email the Honor Council students hearing today after school. I give them the location where the hearing is going to be held, and then it's up to them to go to their coach or their sponsor. If you're in drama, to Mr. Broyles, it will be up to you to go and talk to them and say, I have a hearing today. And again, high school hearings take precedence. over everything except a game or if you're in a show and you're going to have your show that night. But otherwise, it takes first place and they're always done at 3 o'clock. In terms of how long they last, I can't honestly answer. Some are very short. A student who had said, yes, I did this, they come in, they plead guilty, and it could be over in 15 minutes. On the other hand, if a student is going to lie, or if it's multiple students involved, it might take an hour and a half or 2 hours. So it just depends on each particular case, but they always start at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
How does honor council know if you did something bad?
Would you like to?
We, every member of the high school community, that's the students and teachers, sign a pledge that we are gonna hold each other accountable to uphold honor. And so sometimes teachers will say, here's what I have found. Sometimes students will say, here's what I saw. Anyone can report something.
And you'll find that when you get to high school, a lot of teachers have students submit their work to turnitin.com, which is a website that checks for plagiarism and so forth. And sometimes that'll flag something, and it may be the student, was trying to pass something off as their own work, when in reality it's not. So sometimes that's how things come to light.
Yes.
Give her a good tie to,
No, because we don't have one Fridays, no, but now you are.
Yeah, that'll be the other thing. Somebody asked about when these are. Ordinarily, we never have a hearing on a Friday because a lot of people go out of town for the weekend. So anyway, the other thing I would say is that they always happen, I think your question was, that they always happen the same day that a student is talked to. We don't want to have a student carrying around the burden for longer than one day. So the day we interview them is the same day we have the hearing. But again, because a lot of people go out of town on a Friday, we're not going to talk to them Friday and then make them wait the whole weekend to have their hearing. That would not be their time. So anyway, it's usually the same day of the week, or the same day of the week that we talk to them, other than Fridays.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Have you ever had a tie in the voting? A tie?
Not while I've been here, so.
Question here and then one over here.
Right.
We like to use conference rooms to help maintain confidentiality. So we just have a variety of locations that we use depending on what's available, but that information is listed in the email that students get.
We also have the tunnels that we go down.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson.
You're not sure if I'm kidding or not. That's where the dungeon is, where we tie the convicted up before we bring out the electric rods. Great question. I don't know if it.
Hey, guys, listen.
Please go ahead, ask again.
What if a student cheats 2 times?
Okay, do you want to?
Sure, so the first offense is treated differently than the second, like you can incur more penalty the second time around. Because honestly, the whole purpose of the Honor Council is to teach people not to make the same mistake, and we're trying to make it so that you don't make the same mistake in college or in your workplace where that would be really bad. You could go to jail, you could get kicked out of college. So the second time around, the penalty is a little higher, so we treat that differently. We also look at underclassmen versus upperclassmen differently because they've been under the honor code for longer.
And the other thing too is the level of egregiousness, which is a big word for it. If a student comes in and tells us the truth, we note that. If a student comes in and repeatedly lies in the hearing, we also take note of that because we tell them at the beginning, look, we expect you to give us honest answers. And if a student is going to come, I mean, how ironic to go to an honor council hearing and lie? What's wrong with that picture? So the consequences go up if the student is going to sit there and lie to our faces. So anyway, there's a wide range. It just depends a lot on, again, how long they lived under the honor code and then how forthright they have been with us. All right, well then, let me just finally conclude by telling you, if this is something you feel like you would like to do next year, on the X Drive, there is a folder called Honor Council. And there's 4 documents there that you should look at. They are due back next week, Wednesday. So fairly short turnaround time, but enough that, you know, you can get that done. You'll have to answer about 4 or 5 questions. Then you also have to get 2 recommendations from teachers. So you want to be sure that you give the faculty members enough time to get those completed and sent back to me. And so anyway, that's what's involved. You'll go to the X Drive, Honor Council folder, and then you'll find all the instructions there that you follow through. And then on the 14th of April is the actual election, or your vote for your classmates. And the other thing as it is involved is this interview that I said. You'll actually meet with the juniors and the seniors who are on the council. They'll ask you some questions, and that I have to wait until I see how many people apply before I know when I want to get that scheduled. So, any questions? And of course, you know, Mrs. Hanlon will be free to answer questions for you about where you access the material and any other of your other teachers. On the X Drive, it's pretty simple in the Honor Council folder. Okay, go ahead.
Is the interview before the vote, or is?
Some years yes, some years no, just depending. There's 4 main components. Each one is graded separately, so there's no need for it to happen before the vote. And again, some years we've had 13 or 14 8th graders apply. Other years we've had 4 or 5. So anyway, yes.
Is it only this class that's voted, or is it our class?
No, it'll just be you will vote for your representatives, and then later in April, I forget the exact date, but later in April, the 10th graders, the current 10th graders will vote for their representatives, 11th grade will vote for theirs, and so forth. So each class does their own.
What happens if there's less than 3 people?
Less than? We have never had that happen. Yep, never have had that happen. Yeah, that's fine. And I'll let you at some point discuss with them what we discuss.
Same time.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions. Yes, just you. And usually those are held before school. So what I do is I'll send you an email and I'll say, hey, your interview's been scheduled for 7:15. I'll have to reserve the room. I can't tell you guarantee where it'll be, but come to this room at this time. And everybody's scared because you're going in front of juniors and seniors asking questions. These guys are as nice young people as you'll find. There's no reason you'll be nervous, but you know, as much as I can convince you not to be, that's the circumstances. Go ahead. Absolutely you do. Is that a deal breaker for you? You don't have to answer, but you do. The day, the 14th of April, when you guys do your vote. Basically all it is you getting up and explaining why you're running and why they should vote for you. Channel your inner Donald Trump.
Hey, listen up.
If you're like a 10th grader and you get in trouble, is it only the 10th graders that vote on you?
No, the entire Honor Council hears all the hearings. Now, honestly, the other day we had to conduct a hearing, and in that case there was a boys, I think, varsity and JV lacrosse game, so those players were missing. And the council from 14 was down to about 9. So we still had the hearing, but those guys were not there because, again, the game does take precedence over the Honor Council, but not the practice.
If you accuse someone of something, is it anonymous?
Yes, it is. We had that happen earlier this year where a girl reported somebody cheating in a class, and no one ever had found out who that person was. They came to my office, we had a private conversation, and I took it from there. All right, yes, go ahead.
Is the Honor Council's judgment final?
You know, but I understand that we submit deliberations and our take on the hearing to Mr. Koch, who ultimately decides on the punishment.
I've been on the Honor Council about 8 years. I've never yet seen the dean overrule the Honor Council in terms of innocence or guilt. Sometimes they will, these guys make the recommendation to the dean about what the consequences should be, and it can range from out-of-school suspension to in-school suspension a 0 on whatever the assignment was, could be counseling with the high school guidance counselor, whatever they feel is appropriate. The dean is not bound to follow their recommendations, but ordinarily he does. If there's some extenuating circumstance that we're not aware of, he may decide that, again, we didn't have a whole picture, and so he's not gonna go along with it, but almost always he goes with what these guys say. Yes? Let me guess, you're gonna run with all these questions.
Has anyone ever been expelled from?
Yes, the way that is not the honor council's decision, honestly, but the way the high school is, the honor code is written, if you get the 3 honor violations, when these guys go to deliberate, that's expulsion is on the table. And if someone has committed 3 honor offenses, it's pretty clear they don't get it. That we're a community that values honor, and so there have been times, probably 3 or 4 students that I can think of right off the top of my head that have been expelled. One as a second semester senior. Imagine that. Who also lost a college scholarship.
Like,
3 in your high school career. It's not 3 a year. All right, one more question here.
Hey, listen up, listen up.
Sure, go ahead. Has done what now?
hasn't like made this decision, hasn't judged them fairly.
Not in my view. I think Benji will tell you, someone asked a question about, was there ever a tie? Ordinarily, it is like 13-1 maybe, or 12-2 sometimes, but ordinarily it's fairly unanimous decisions because we're not going to go forward with a hearing unless we're convinced that the student has violated the policy or whatever.
Before we have a hearing, the honor council teachers will talk to the student, and then if they believe that there's been a honor violation, then we'll go through with it. So it's not often that, I've had instances where people have been not guilty, but that's not often, and often it's pretty clear when someone is cheated.
But students have been found not guilty by the honor council. Yeah, that has happened.
Wait, so when the honor council votes, it's unanimous, right?
No, it does not have to be.
It's anonymous.
Simple majority is all that's needed.
Oh, but like, can you
Why
tell
would
us
you
if
say
a ninth
unanimous
grade-
or anonymous?
Unanimous.
Unanimous or anonymous?
Okay, so like, if I'm a ninth grader, like.
And you've been accused?
No, okay, let's say Lauren is accused, and let's say I'm friends with her. Like, so if I like say she's not guilty because she's my friend, will they like see that I said she's not guilty or something? Will they know that?
Yes. Everyone votes by the raising of their hand in the hearing.
Oh.
Right.
Who has lived?
Honestly, again, the only students who end up running for honor council are students who value honor. They are not going to tolerate someone coming on when the evidence is pretty obvious that the student has committed an infraction, that somebody's going to find them not guilty.
And you're not gonna vote for them if you know that there are people who will not do it.
Right.
Because this is not a popularity vote.
And honestly, in a case like, if the evidence is very clear that the person committed an honor infraction and somebody would vote that they're not guilty, they're going to have a conversation with the dean and the principal about whether they should be on.
Someone on
Hush.
No.
If you're like friends or something with someone, and you're on the honor council, and like your friend's been tried, would you be taken off of that trial?
Great question. Do you know how we do it?
I know I was a past instance.
Very, very rarely. We expect you to come and be impartial, honestly. Now, that's something else you need to weigh as you're deciding whether or not you want to run. Because it's a hard thing to vote against a friend of yours. And we get that, but again, you're asked to do that.
So like, if you get to your friend, you say, it's okay, I'm not going to.
You can come and talk to one of the sponsors, but there's no guarantee that they will agree. It's rare when we do that. We need 14 students to be there. That's the fairest way to handle it. And again, we expect people, if the evidence points in this direction, you need to follow the evidence. If it points in that direction, follow it that way. But whichever way it points, you have to be honest and fair yourself. All right. Are you okay with time?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, if you were to accuse someone, would you have to show up at trial?
Sometimes a student will come and give what's called a witness statement, but the other person would never see you. We would have you come first, and we would give you plenty of time to tell whatever you saw. You would leave, and then 5 minutes later, or whatever, we would bring this person in. So from our vantage point, they won't know. Whether they put 2 and 2 together sometimes, and I can't guarantee they can't figure it out, but they would never see you, they would never hear your name, or anything like that.
So you know, like, who you're trying before the actual, like, hearing?
No, not till you get there.
Does it not have a email or everything?
I'm sorry?
The email just says there's a hearing.
Yeah, so you would put the name in the email, so just.
Correct. I just put in my subject line, I put hearing today, and then the body of the email, I tell them that, when 3 o'clock comes, report to this room, we have a hearing today. That's all I said. Okay, in the back?
Oh, what if someone is innocent but they're found
What if someone's what?
innocent but they're found?
Well, again, the one thing that should be a comfort to all of you when you get to high school, you have your peers who are the ones deciding. I don't get to vote at the end of the hearing. Now, again, Mrs. Abbott, she had a class, so she had to leave, but we, 2 of the sponsors, always meet with the accused student in the daytime. If we believe there is enough evidence to move forward, we do go forward. But that's the end of my role, really. These guys are the ones that make the decision.
Yeah, we're not looking to, like, honestly, me knowing people, like, it's a small school, you know most of the people that come before you because you pretty much know everybody, and honestly, it's not like we enjoy punishing people. I'd much rather see someone be innocent than be a mistake, so if you're innocent, we're going to find it because if you tell the truth, then it's pretty obvious you're telling the truth. If you're lying, it's pretty obvious.
Okay?
What kind of evidence was brought forward?
Well, someone over here asked earlier about, how are we made aware of honor violation? Well, for example, if it's a turnitin.com, the teacher who's presenting it may just print out the paper, and it'll show us the website that the person took it from. So that could be a piece of evidence, right? Or it could be a phone, honestly.
Would the punishment be less severe if, like, it was an accident, like collision accident, like you cited something wrong, for example?
You want to identify or define plagiarism?
I think you give a better definition, but what I was going to say is that we do consider intent.
We do, but keep in mind, plagiarism is plagiarism regardless of intent. Stealing takes intent, right? Lying takes intent. But plagiarism, not necessarily. You could legitimately make a mistake, but the end result is it's still plagiarism. So yes, we have students where it's pretty obvious. They copied and pasted or cut and pasted or whatever. That's pretty obvious. Intent is clearly there in a case like that. How do you put something in your paper that's word for word from a website and not know you did it? On the other hand, if the student legitimately doesn't know how to cite properly, then that may be one where we look at and say, look, it's still plagiarism, but there was no intent here. So
the penalty.
yeah, so that we would take that into account when we recommend or they recommend what the penalty should be. Yeah. All right.
It's like a
Wait, you guys had no questions for the longest time. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's like the most minor, like major punishment.
Most minor punishments.
0 on the assignment, usually, because if you cheated, then none of it's going to count. So usually 0 on the assignment is probably the lowest penalty.
Yeah, whatever assignment it is, whether it's a quiz, a test, a paper, if you've cheated on it, you're going to get a 0. It's that simple. We do not try to figure out, well, they only cheated on this part or that part. No. If you cheated on an assignment, you get a 0. Now, do the math. We're dealing with smart people in this room. You get a 0 on assignment, it's huge. We have found students that have lied sometimes about why a paper is late. You are much better to take the late penalty than to lie about it, get caught, and then get a 0 on the assignment. So just from the punitive standpoint, for, even forgetting for a second how dishonest it is to lie, but do the math. You're much better off going to the teacher and saying, look, I had a game last night, I didn't get this done, will you give me any additional time? Than it is to make up some story that, keep in mind, it's that old adage, you tell one lie, usually you have to tell a second one to cover up the first one. And then you need to tell another one to cover up the second one. And you end up in a pretty, big web by the time it's all done. So, step up, and then, as Benji's pointed out, the best thing you can ever do for yourself is just take ownership. I get, and so do these guys, we get that teenagers will sometimes make mistakes. That part of it's fine, but don't come in there and look us in the eye and lie to us. Take ownership for what you did, it'll go a whole lot better for you. So, yes?
What if the family members on file? Do you stay on honor council for that time?
That one, we would probably have you recuse yourself. You mean like a sibling?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. I don't think we would make you stay for that. No, you're interested.
Okay, hang on, guys.
Hey.
Listen up. You all know you live by the haiku, so if you go to the 8th grade page, student documents, it tells you where to find that. I didn't post your documents, I left them on X drive, but we have a bad habit in the 8th grade of procrastinating. And these are due at 3 o'clock on Wednesday. Today is Thursday, that's less than a week. And you have
Hey, be quiet.
You have some questions that you have to answer, you have an application to fill out, you have to get teacher recommendations. Everything has to be in by Wednesday at 3 o'clock. It's on haiku.
We do not accept late applications.
Period,
It's
over and
that
out,
simple.
it's done.
We've had kids come to us and say, I forgot, 3:30 or early next morning. It's too late. What does that tell us about your ability to be on the honor council if you can't meet a deadline?
Where do they
So-
put in applications?
They can either bring me a hard copy or put it in my mailbox in the high school office, or you can just send me the electronic copy. That's fine.
I'll add that to the haiku.
Custer, C-U-S-T-E-R, so just Art Custer, Wesleyan School, and you can email me your electronic copy. All right,
Okay,
thank
thank
you all.
y'all very much. Backward.